Alright, how you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying some daf. Who could tell me what daf we're studying today? Alright. Chaf Vav. Daf Chaf Vav, Masechta Gittin. Friends. Friends, today we're going to talk about templates. You know what a template is? A template. It's like a template. That's what we're going to learn about. We're going to learn about templates for documents. Sounds like fun stuff. Oh, I left the light on. Alright, what do you want me to tell you? Okay. Says we're going to start in the Mishnah Daf Chavav Mud Aleph, about 5, 6, 7 lines into the page. Says the Mishnah, Kosev Tofse Gittin. So if a fellow writes a template for a get, meaning as Rashi says, he's a sofer and he wants to just have a bunch of documents available. So if somebody comes in and says, hey, I need a document. So, hey, I need a document. So he has them available. Sure, take this document. So if he wants to do that, so of course, if Tosei Gittin, so he's got to leave a blank space. He can write a template. Sure, he can, write sort of the generic parts, a template, and then just leave out blank space for Mekom Isha, the man, the wife, Mekom Azman, the time of the get, period. Shtari milve, if he wants to have loan documents on hand. So leave a blank space for the lender, the borrower, Mekom Amos, how much the amount is, Mekom Azman, the time of the loan. Shtari mekach, or the time of, I guess, that the document is being signed for the loan, written for the loan. Shtari mekach, right, if you want to have a purchase document. So leave a blank space for the buyer, for the seller. How much money we're talking about, which field are we talking about? The time. Because of the takone, the Gemara is going to give a few explanations of what exactly is this takone that we are talking about, that on account of this takona, this enactment, we're saying that templates are allowed. Rabbi Yehuda posel b'chulin. Rabbi Yehuda says nisht. Rabbi Yehuda says no templates. You write them from scratch. That's it. Rabbi Elazar machshir b'chulin chutz migitei noshim shenemar v'chosav lo lishmo. Whereas Rabbi Elazar says that you can use a template for loans. You can use a template for sales. No using templates for a get. You can't use a template for a get because the pasuk says v'chosav lo lishmo. You have to write it for her, therefore you can't use a template. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. One second, I have to turn off this light actually because it's a shtickle bothering me. Hopefully it won't mess up the microphone. Okay, now this light is off. Alright, let's see if that makes my fortunes more fortunate. Okay, now says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Tzarich she'aniach af makom hariat muteres l'chol adam. Says Rav Yehuda Shmuel that you also have to leave out, you have to leave a blank space for Hariat Muteris L'chol Adam, that you are permitted to marry anybody else. Rabbi Elazar, and it's Rabbi Elazar, the Amar Eidei Mesira Karte, who says that it's the Eidei Mesira that are important, and so then if it's Eidei Mesira Karte, so what's the part of the get that has to be written Lishma? It's not the Chasimos, that would be Reb Meir, it's the body of the document. The get itself needs to be written Lishma, and therefore, you have to leave out, additionally, Hariat Muteris L'chol Adam. Utzrichos. Now the Gemara says we need all three. We need all three what? Well, we had 3 Mishnayos, including this one, where Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel that it's Rabbi Elazar. The first one being that you're not allowed to write a get if it's connected to the ground. The second one being that anybody is kosher to write a get, and then additionally, this Mishnah, Babylon, sorry if I just made you all yawn. I'm sorry. I didn't push the button fast enough. I babbled. And then this get about writing templates for Gittin. In all 3 of those, if you can go back. I invite you to go back if you want. Look at the Gemaras. You'll find Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel says that the Mishnah is Rabbi Elazar. Utzricha, we needed for Rav Yehuda and Shmuel to say by all 3 cases that it's Rabbi Elazar. The Ashmina and Hach Kamaisa, because if we'd only have I'm babble yawning all over town. Alright. Well, if we would only have the first case where, right, it says that a get cannot be written if it's connected to the ground. And Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel is saying that that is like Rabbi Elazar. There, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel says that it's like Rabbi Elazar. The katani ein kozvin v'katani kosvo. Right? That it said over there, you're not allowed to write a get on something that's connected to the ground. And then immediately after that, in the Mishnah, if you remember, it says, and if you write a get on something that's attached to the ground, etc. So Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel had to explain that, I don't understand. It says don't write a get, then it says you can write a get if it's connected to the ground. It said, well, it's Rabbi Elazar and you have to leave over the Torif, right? Aval Seifa Dikatani, but I might think that in the next Mishnah where it says that that anybody is kosher to read to write a get, and then it says that even if the wife writes her own get, it's kosher. She'ein kiyum get el b'chosama, because we said, look, at the end of the day, the main thing is the signatures, and we needed, where am I? So Rabbi Elazar Dikatani and goes, where am I? She'ein kiyum get el b'chosama v'emur Rabbi Meir. So I might think, if it's talking about the chasimos, I might think that it's Reb Meir. Who says that the Eidei Chasima is what's important. So I need Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel to say, no, hold your horses, don't get carried away. It's not Reb Meir, it's actually Rabbi Elazar, and it's saying that it's actually Rabbi Elazar. And what was it? What? He explained that it was talking about the Torif? Is that what it was? Oh no. How did I? Wait, what? I'm sorry. V'hushaya gadol. No. But what did he say? Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. V'ushashir mekom hatorif. Yeah, there you go. That he left over the mekom hatorif, and it's Rabbi Elazar there as well. Now I have to find what page I'm on again, friends. What page are we learning today? Oh, okay, fine. So therefore, I needed Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel to teach me that it is Rabbi Elazar, and don't get fooled by the fact that it says she'ein kiyum aget el b'chosamav. No, it's talking about where there's that you left over the Torif, and it's like Rabbi Elazar. V'ashminim be'ahi hayinami ikalukma Rabbi Elazar aval ha ima midaseif Rabbi Elazar have a reisha lav Rabbi Elazar tzricha. But in this case, okay, fine. So if Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel explains that by the connected to the ground and by anybody can write a get, if you would say that's Rabbi Elazar, fine. But I might think that over here, if we look at our Mishnah, the last part of the Mishnah says Rabbi Elazar machshir b'chulun chutz migittin noshim shenemar v'chasav la'lishma, implying that the first part of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Elazar. Comes Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, says no, even the first part is also Rabbi Elazar. Okay, fine. So we needed Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel by all three cases to tell us that the author of the Mishnah is Rabbi Elazar. Okay, fine. Excuse me. I'm just going to babble on properly. Okay, now that I did a proper babble on off camera, maybe that'll babble on us through the rest of the daf. I shouldn't even be that tired. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. I mean, granted, I've been up for a while, but and I didn't sleep that much. But still, I mean, come on. How many coffees did I have today? I think maybe 3. I don't know. Oh man. I feel like I tend to have like 3 coffees before like 7 in the morning. No, but today, yeah, it's true. I probably had my 3rd coffee today at like 7:30 in the morning. Alright, fine. Let's go weiter. Alright, where are we? Fine, okay. The Sefer Belozah, okay, Averesha, Lava, Belozah, Tzricha, fine. Where am I? I don't know. Who cares? What do I know? What do I care? Averesha, what? Lava, okay, Tzricha, great. Mipnei Takona, Gewaldig. Excuse me, there's some noise outside. Alright. Mipnei Takona. We said Mipnei Takona that the reason that you're allowed to have these templates are Mipnei Takona. So what takana? My takana? What takana? What enactment are we talking about? Reb Yonason mipnei takana sofer. So Reb Yonason says because we have Rachmanis on the scribe. If we don't let him accumulate templates, well then every single time somebody comes into his shop, he's gonna have to say, all right, let me write you a new one from scratch. So in order to help out the sofer, in order to help out the scribe, we say, look, sure, no problem. Write up a whole bunch of documents. You have them on hand. Somebody needs a document. Maybe needs a few documents, whatever it might be. You have them available. You have these templates that you've written in advance. Rabbi Lazar, and it's Taka Rabbi Lazar, Damar Ede Mesira Karte, who says Ede Mesira Karte, and therefore you have to write the body of the get, you have to write it Lishma. Uvedinu Dafilu Tofis Nami Lo Lichtov, and ideally, right, according to Rabbi Lazar, since you have to write the body of the get Lishma, so you shouldn't be writing any templates because you want it to be bespoke for the couple. Umishum takana sofrim shor rabbanan. That's the whole point of the enactment, that because, to help out the scribes, even though ideally you should write the entire body of the document, for this couple, but we understand that out of the interest of helping out the scribes, that they don't always have to write the whole thing from scratch, and they can have them available to be able to give to people. So we say, look, at the end of the day, the important part is the torif, is the names and the time. So that's the important play. So that is the important. What do we say? Makoma isha. Wait, makoma isha, makoma zman. So you have to leave place for the husband, the wife, and the time that it is taking place. That's the important part. But the rest of it, you can write it and keep it on hand, but only in the interest of helping out the scribes. Ideally, you would really write the whole thing from scratch. Fine. Rabbi Yehuda posel b'chulin. Rabbi Yehuda says that nisht. Rabbi Yehuda says nisht. Says not by a get, not by a loan, not by nothing. Gazer tofis atu torif. By a get, he says that you can't write a template for the generic parts out of concern that you might end up writing the torif in advance. You might end up writing the names and the play and the time in advance, which we don't want. So therefore, because we're out of concern that you might write the torif in advance, we say don't write the tofes in advance either. And then gazer shtaris atu gittin. And then we say that not only by Gittin, but by all shtaris out of concern for Gittin. Right? So by get, we don't write the tofes out of concern that you might write the torif. And we also don't write templates for other documents either, like loans and sales, out of concern that you might do it for a get. Rabbi Lazar, machshir b'chulin, chutz migittin ashman. In the Sefer, Rabbi Lazar had said that you can use a template for other documents, but not by get isha. Tofes atu torif gazer, that he makes a gezerah that don't write the tofes, don't write a template by a get out of concern that you might write a torif by a get. But shtaris atu gittin lo gazer, but he does not make a gezerah by other shtaris out of concern for a get. No, by get you don't write a template, but the other documents you can write a template. Shnei Amar, as the pasuk says, v'chosav law, that you have to write a bespoke get. You have to write it for her. But one second, when it says v'chosav law, you have to write it for her. That's the torif. You have to write the torif for her, not the tofes. So why is Rabbi Lazar saying that out of concern for v'chosav law, you can't write a template for a get? V'chosav law is for the torif, not for the tofes. So ela ema mishum shenemar v'chosav law lishma. No, because it says by the torif v'chosav law that has to be lishma. So out of concern for that, we also say don't write the tofes lishma either, because out of a gezerah that you might end up making the torif lishma. Kasha de Rabbi Lazar. Param pam pam param. So now we have Rabbi Lazar is contradictory. We're saying that Rabbi Lazar is the Reisha of the Mishnah, right? That was a Yehuda Mashmul, right? That we're saying that by a get you just got to leave out the makoma ish, makoma isha, makoma zman. We said Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul said that is Rabbi Lazar, and yet Rabbi Lazar in the Sefer is saying that you can't have a template by a get. So I don't understand. Kasha Rabbi Lazar ad Rabbi Lazar. He seems to be contradictory. On the one hand, he's saying you can have a tofes by a get, and on the other hand, he's saying that you can't. So Trei Tanoi v'Alibud Rabbi Lazar. There are two Tanoim who were discussing Rabbi Lazar's opinion. Okay, right. There were two Tanoim who explained Rabbi Lazar's opinion, and they had conflicting versions of what his opinion was. Okay, fine. So up until now we explained that the takonas, mipnei takona is the takonas sofrim. Out of concern, right, that we want to help out the scribes so that they can have documents on hand and they don't have to write it from scratch all the time. Reb Shabsi Amar Chizkiya mishum k'toto. So Reb Shabsi says the name of Chizkiya, that out of concern for fighting, we don't want the husband and the wife to fight. Reb Meir and it's Reb Meir. That Reb Meir's opinion is that Eidei Chasima Karte, that what's important is the people who sign the get. That has to be Lishma. The writing of the body of the get, whether it's the Torif, whether it's the Tofis, whether it's the Torif, it doesn't matter. The only important thing that has to be written in the Shema is the Chasimos. The rest of it, the entire rest of it, the Torif, the Tofis, does not need to be Lishma. So if that's the case, right, so we're saying now though that the Mishnah is Reb Meir. So then, if the Mishnah is Reb Meir, so then why is it saying that you have to leave out Mekom Ha'ish, Mekom Ha'isha Ve'azman? Write those two. According to Reb Meir, it doesn't matter. Just the Chasimos have to be Lishma. Uvadinu da'afilu Torif nami lichtov. And the fact of the matter is that really, technically speaking, you would be able to write the Torif in advance. But, you ready for this? V'zimnin deshama le lesofer dikoksiv. Well, what happens if you have a woman who's walking by the scribal shop and she sees that they're writing a get with her name and her husband's name, V'sover iu ka'amarle, and she says, that son of a gun, he's divorcing me. V'avalok tota bahadei, and then they get into a fight and he goes to sleep without dinner. And chaval. So therefore, in order to avoid a situation like that, where somebody walks by a scribal shop and hears names and starts thinking that maybe her husband's trying to divorce her, and they get in a fight and he goes to sleep without supper. So in order to avoid that, we just leave out the name and the time. But technically speaking, right, so that's the takana, right? Takana's ktoto. That out of, technically speaking, you could write the whole thing in advance, the Torah, the Tofes, but out of concern for people getting into fights and men going to sleep without supper, so we say just leave out the name. Fine, and the time. Rav Chizda Amar Avimi Mishum Takonas Agunis. So Rav Chizda says the name of Avimi that the takana is the Takonas Agunis. That generally speaking, what I think most of us are familiar with the concept of aguna is a woman who's basically trapped in a marriage, whether it's because her husband is a nudnik or worse, and he refuses to give her a get, and she's a married woman, she can't get remarried because she's a married woman, she's basically stuck in her marriage, in a dead-end marriage. Another option could be if her husband is nowhere to be found, right? He's presumed dead, but we don't know for sure, right? That's what we learned about in Masechta Yevamis, right? About being able to trust one witness to say that somebody's husband died, so that she won't be an aguna. So generally speaking, right, when we think of aguna, we think of a woman who's trapped in a marriage. But interestingly, we're going to see two understandings of aguna. One is that, but the other one is actually a woman who gets divorced, like in a preventable kind of situation, and now she's divorced even though she didn't want to be, and now she's got to figure out what to do next. So that's also a chaval situation. So Rav Chizda Amar Avimi Pnei Takonas Agunis. So Rav Chizda says the name of Avimi that the takana that we're talking about here is the takana of Agunis. Amri la Reb Meir, Amri la Reb Elazar. You can explain the situation according to Reb Meir as well as according to Reb Elazar. Amri la Reb Meir, you can explain according to Reb Meir. Do Amar Eidei Chasima Karte, who says that the Eidei Chasima are right, that only the signing needs to be lishma, but the rest of the get does not, and it can be written in advance. And therefore, technically speaking, you can even write the torif in advance. But if you write the torif in advance, so then you have basically, if this couple just has a get lying around, fully written with all the information, including names and times and everything, well then what happens is they get in a fight, and then he just throws the get at her, and because this all happened so quickly, because there was already a get on hand, so he just throws her the get, and now they're divorced, and she's on her own, and chaval, that just because they got in a fight, all of a sudden now they're divorced. So therefore, in order to prevent this situation, we say, look, just leave out leave out the names and the times that it's not a fully ready to go get, and there would be more, there would be more steps required before anybody gets divorced. Amrei la Rabbi Lazar, those say it's Rabbi Lazar, the Amrei de Mesira Karte, who says Edi Mesira Karte, and therefore the get needs to be written lishma. Uvedinu da afilu tofes nami lo lichtov, and therefore theoretically you really also should not write the tofes either, write the generic parts. But v'zimnin deboi lemezel abdina sayam. But what might happen is the husband wants to go out on a trip someplace, and before he goes out on the trip, he wants to write a get for his wife. So just in case anything happens, and he's never heard of again, she won't be an aguna. So v'lo ashkach safra, but there's no sofer around at such last minute request. There's no scribe around to write a full get for him. And then, so he doesn't have anybody to write a get on a whim, and he just, so he goes out to sea without writing a get at all, and then she could mamish be stuck as if something happens to him and she never hears from him again, she's stuck in a marriage. So therefore, to prevent that, we say, look, the sofer could just have templates of Gittin lying around, so that if on a whim he needs to go on a business trip or something far away at sea, it's easy to just go to the scribal shop, pick up a template, fill it out, and then you have a get available. So the Mishnah had said umikom azman, right? So you have to leave out in the template. You leave out the time of the get, and you fill that in at the time that you're putting it together to be given. So kapozik v'tani loshna mina nisun v'loshna mina erisin. So the Mishnah made a blanket statement, and it said you have to leave out the time, regardless of if they're engaged or if they're fully married. Okay, so I understand why you'd have to leave out the time if they're fully married. Right? We saw two opinions about why you have to write the time in a get. One was out of concern of that you might be married to your niece, and then she might have an affair, and you want to prevent her from getting the death penalty. So therefore, you just write a get without a time. So therefore, writing it in order to save her. But the fact of the matter is, she had an affair, and whatever. So if it is what it is. So therefore, we say in order to prevent that situation, you have to write the time. Okay, so if they're married, you have to write the time. And also in terms of Peris Nichsei Melug, right, that from the time that the get is written, so then he can't get benefit from the Peris Nichsei Melug anymore, so therefore you have to write the time. Fine, Beseder. El min ha'erisin, but in terms of if they're only engaged, so I understand if we're saying that the issue is mishum basachosu because of his niece. Okay, so that's equally relevant if they're engaged, right? Because and right now Morasa is beskila, and if she's older, so then it would be it would still nonetheless be chenik, I think. So mishum pere arusa miisla pere, but if it's about peris, arusa doesn't have peris nichsei milug. So Omer Rav Amram. So there are no halachos of nichsei milug. So Omer of Amram says of Amram, Chamilsa Shamois Mine Deula. I heard the following from Ula, Damim Mishum Takonas Volod, that Ula said that it's about Takonas Volod. V'lo yadayna mai niun. I didn't know what is Takonas Volod. Came the Sham Isa lo leho Ditanya. When I heard that, which was taught in the Brisa, Omer Kisvu get la rusasi, that if a fellow says, write a get for I'm engaged, write a get for my fiance. And when we get married, I'll immediately divorce her. When we get married, I will divorce her. Ain't no get. It's not a get. And Ula says, how come it's not a good get? Because we're concerned that maybe people will say that the get preceded, that she was already divorced before she got pregnant. And people in the Yentis in the bungalow colony on Shabbos afternoon, they're going to have a field day. They'll have someone to talk about the whole Shabbos afternoon. They'll have to save everybody else for next week. So here also it's the same type of a concern, that if you have an engaged woman, and so if you have the get, So you have to write the time in it, so that you should know when the get is was given, and nobody should say have any doubts as to when they got divorced, in terms of if they get if she gets pregnant, and the yentis in the bungalow colony on Shabbos afternoon. Amr Reb Zera says Reb Zera, Amr Baba Bar Shila, Amr Rav Hamnuna, Sava, Amr Rav Ada Bar Hava, Amr Rav. Okay. Halacha Reb Elazar. That the halacha is like Reb Elazar. That the halacha is like Reb Elazar. That when it comes to a get, we don't write these templates. Rav said about Reb Elazar that he was the most fortunate of the rabbis. All right. Does Rav say that the halacha is like Reb Elazar even by shar shtaros? That also, right? That he says that by other documents you'd be allowed to have these templates. Right? Reb Elazar said by a get in the sefer. Reb Elazar says by a get you can't have a template, but by other documents you can. V'amar Papi mishmei de Rave, but didn't Rav Papi say in the name of Rave, hayasharta de daine de michtiva mikame de l'saidu saide achsim esadayu psula? We learned about this in Masechta Ksubis, that if you have witnesses who come to Bezdin and they testify that their signatures are in fact theirs, and Bezdin then writes on the get, on the document, yes, we as Bezdin affirmed, confirmed that these are the signatures of the witnesses, and they write this thing. If they write it, right, so again, so Hayasharta Dedaini, this sort of confirmation that the judges write on a document, that if they write this before the witnesses actually testify about their signatures, psula, it's a pasul addendum. So we see that if they write it in advance, it looks dishonest, it looks like lying. So we should say the same thing over here, that if you're writing a template for like a loan document or anything like that in advance, it seems dishonest that you're writing it in advance. You should write it at the time of the loan. V'leisa mid Rav Nachman, and we say this is baloney. Mid Rav Nachman, Omer Rav Nachman, Omer Hoy Rav Meir. That Rav Meir would say, afilu mitzvah ba'ashpa, that even if you find a get in the dumpster, meaning you find a get in a random place, chasmo v'nosnula kosher, as long as you sign it lishma and give it to her, it's kosher, even though you found this get fully written in a garbage heap. Now, the rabbis argue with Rav Meir when it comes to a get, to be in ksiva lishma, they say, look, but it has to be written lishma. Okay, beseder. Hava b'shar shtar is low, but they don't argue with other documents. They would have no problem with a different document, like a loan document, that you happen to have just found a document and you want to use it. That if you have a document, right? If Shimon borrows $1,000 from Reuven and they write a document, ufro, and Mamish pays it back the same day, so you can't reuse it, right? Even though it has, the names are there and the time, everything's right. You can't reuse the document even if it gets paid back on the same day, because any sort of lien that would have been invoked by this document has already been released. The reason why you can't reuse the document is because the shibud was already unlocked. Aval mishum shikro chashin. But there's no concern about dishonesty or lying. But that's not a concern. That if it's written in advance, then we're concerned about lying. That is not a concern, and therefore. There doesn't seem to be a concern by other documents, like a loan document. If you write the template in advance, that would be okay. Friends, that was daf Chavav of Masechta Gittin. I think it was a relatively interesting daf. We learned about writing templates for documents. We had a 3-way machlokas in the Mishnah. The Tanakama says that you could write templates for documents by all documents, as long as you leave out sort of the dynamic content, like who it's, the parties involved, the time, if there's money involved, how much money. Rabbi Yehuda says nisht. You can't write documents in advance. And Rabbi Elazar in the Seifa says that you can use templates, just not for getting out of concern for lishma. Okay, fine. Friends, as of Chavav Masechta Gittin, I hope you enjoy. Peace out.